Just a couple of things before I hit the opener. One, I haven't prepared a speech for, but hearing the sad diagnosis of Mr. Jim Ross, he being the world famous announcer, podcaster, maker of the fine barbecue sauces and rubs, and all round good egg. Sorry to hear about your colon cancer, Mr. Ross, good old JR. Hope you get all the treatment you need. Our family's spiritual prayers go towards you, even with my wife, who I've told your story about too many times, even though she hates wrestling. But she feels for you with your story of what you've gone through. You're a good man, and I know you pull through, and we've got prayers for you. The other thing before we hit the opener is I'd like to pay my respects to Sabu, whose real name was Terry Brunk, and he sadly passed away recently. As many have said, he was a pioneer of the hardcore style of wrestling. Now, while I feel like I've grown out of most of that type of hardcore style, I don't mind a match that is believable, regardless of the style that the men employ. What sets Sabu, as well as RVD, Terry Funk and a couple of others apart in the hardcore style is that while they were looking to do high spots for the pops, they were still telling a story in the ring. Now, I saw Sabu's last match, and once I found out the backstory, it was saddened about how we lost this legend way too soon, and it was not long after this ridiculous match took place. Now, his match with RVD Guilty in Charge in 2000, it's still one of my favourite matches, so R.I.P. Sabu. G'day wrestling mates, welcome to If You See Kayfabe. This is episode 46. A big thank you to my guests from the previous 3 weeks. Thank you last episode to Keith Elliott Greenberg, a New York Times best-selling author, who, by the way, will have another book coming out in November 2025, and this one's called This Book is All Elite, the inside story of All Elite Wrestling. I must also thank another new wrestling mate of mine, that being the associate producer of The Wrestler, another New Yorker, Evan Ginsberg, who did 2 shows with me. Now, the second one was our recap together of WrestleMania 41. Now, if you haven't seen those shows, please go have a squiz. That's after you've sampled this. Just an update on my corner of the internet as well as this show. I've started doing a couple of shorts from previous episodes, from interviews. At this time, I've only got shorts from Evan Ginsberg and also with former WCW and WWE wrestler Casey Thompson. And also a shout out to Casey and his co-host Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly, the former WWE, AEW, and NEW, in New Japan announcer no less, and their YouTube show, In Ring Wrestling Podcast. Now, I've also done exactly 100 YouTube shorts of my Joke of the Moment series. I've also got a couple of old VHS clips of classic wrestling, great comedy, and the weirdest version of the Rolling Stones song Honky Tonk Woman you'll ever find. Now, these clips on my channel are copyrighted, so even when this channel grows enough to be monetized, it won't be from these clips, but they're a joy to share. I've also done some articles for pwdownunder.com. They are getting mega lots of content from various folk from all around the world, and what I started doing for them is a series of dream matches. Now, it's in the kayfabe fictional style that Pro Wrestling Illustrated used to do back in the day, was where they took 2 wrestlers who would be unlikely to ever meet in the ring and create a story of how a dream match happened and the match itself. Now, my first offering was titled John Cena's Last Match. Now, notice the question mark. That pertains to who became the unlikely final opponent. Have a read and let me know what you think in the comments down below. I've got a second article of the series, which is with the admin of PW Down Under as we speak. Now, quick break, and then I want to talk to all of the morks. Now, I try not to be negative on this show, but I've seen the hilarious list of "If You Are a Mark If You" by Vince Russo. Now, for those that don't know who old Vinny Roo is, he's a former editor of the old WWF magazine, who then rose to prominence as a writer for the WWF, now WWE. He ran away to WCW, got canned from there, and resurfaced sometime later when Jeff Jarrett created TNA. He is a polarizing figure in pro wrestling. Now, one thing that I find puzzling is that Vinny Roo makes all these claims that he doesn't like wrestling, yet he still tries to make a living from it. Nothing wrong with whatever you choose to make your living from, as long as it's legal and ethical. But if he has outside interests and he believes that he has the talent to do something else, then maybe he shouldn't open himself to the criticism with lists like what you're about to hear dissected. So, according to Mr. Russo, you are a mark if you have convinced yourself that pro wrestling is real. This would be true because the old carny way of lassoing a customer to sample and buy whatever you're selling was to have one guy walk around with chalk on his hand and he'd give a friendly pat on the shoulder or the back of a potential customer. That would leave a mark, and the seller would see that mark and say, well, I'm going to sell to him. I'm from an era where most believed pro wrestling was real because they presented it that way, and there's no shame in that because that's the way it was back then. But mind you, we also used to have to get out of our chairs to change TV channels too. But the majority of people now know it's all a work. Big deal. You just have to look at the billions of dollars generated by WWE and to a lesser extent AEW, TNA and other smaller companies. They don't care whether it's real or not. And there are a few companies in many other countries, especially here in Australia. Calling people marks is not an insult. We're all a mark for something, whether it be a certain type of food, music, or whatever. By definition, we're all marks for something. You're a mark if pro wrestling is the most important thing in your entire life. Yeah, to this, I would say that those trying to make it in the business, it would have to be. Maybe second only to family, if they've got family. But when I was in my 20s, I had no girlfriend, and before I was married, wrestling was pretty high on my list. It was a big hobby. There are a lot worse things that you could focus on. You're a mark if you own a lot of black shirts with pit stains. Huh? Leave that. All right. You're a mark if you don't just want to go to a wrestling show, but you want to be a part of it. This is a very ignorant comment. I mean, we all want to feel like we belong, that we matter. I've seen some folk who look like they are very socially awkward at some wrestling events. Even last weekend at the Alpha Pro Wrestling event called Apex, there were some folk who some in society wouldn't deem as perfect, yet they were treated like they really mattered because they did matter. Their $10 or $15 entry had just as much importance as my $10 entry fee or anyone else's for that matter. And if a wrestler reacts to something that you said to them, as long as it wasn't inappropriate, then you have had an interaction that just might make your day. You're a mark, he says, you're a mark if you sing along with the wrestler's theme songs at the top of your lungs. So what? Mr. Russo, have you been to a concert? A karaoke bar? Maybe have you been to a sports event where Sweet Caroline or a song like that, sing along, has been played? Then you're a mark if Dave Meltzer is your God. Well, I agree. There's only one true God. As for people's opinions, whether or not you agree with what Uncle Dave Prinzel says. That's up to you. Don't know if I've ever seen anyone refer to him as a god. And your remark if work rate in fake wrestling matches is important to you. First of all, wrestling is predetermined, it's scripted, it's many things, but not fake. Ask Big E if his broken neck is fake. Ask Joey Mercury if his face disfigurement from an errant ladder shot is fake. Ask any wrestler with a legitimate injury sustained in the ring if it's fake. Don't expect a pleasant answer. Just ask John Stossel. As far as what part of pro wrestling is important to you, that's still a choice. Let's look at it from your favourite band. All right? What do you like about your favourite band? Their songwriting? The vocalist? Guitars or drums? Or maybe you just think one or more of the members are attractive to you. Point is, we can enjoy the same thing but from a different perspective. Also, you hate any form of entertainment in your wrestling. In the words of controversial Queensland politician Pauline Hanson, please explain. For me, the wrestling is the entertainment. Okay, so now they have music and entrances. Doesn't bother me as long as they're not too long. But I think you missed the boat on the psychology of getting the crowd into what is being sold in this day and age. Oh, so you orgasm over Japanese wrestling, and my God, you should have seen how this supposed journalist spelt a reasonably common adult word. I could do the gag about the activity that would leave marks, but I don't know if people really want to do. And people really do that stuff while Japanese wrestling, watching it. Oh boy. Now, if he means overtly gushing about Japanese wrestling, and that's something that's attributed to Uncle Dave on many occasions, then, once again, that's merely a choice in style. Also, your remark if you're opposed to seeing attractive women in wrestling. No, I just mean that women's wrestling is not your thing. It's me. Look, good luck to any person that wants to be a wrestler. It's a tough job, hard to crack into, and hard to make it to that level where you can make a good living from it. But for me, anyone who is opposed to seeing attractive women in wrestling, well, look, they might be gay, and that's not a slur on anyone. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not into women's wrestling. And if you are gay and you just like flippy stuff, oh, hang on. I got to this thing. When I was rehearsing it, I got stuck on this before. Look, that might be one of the reasons you don't like women in wrestling. Because if you are attracted only to men, but I mean, we're not watching sports because of a sexual attraction. Not most of us, anyway. I don't watch any sport just to say, oh, I mean, I'm happily married. I've been married coming on 35 years. And if you, Mr. Russo, want to talk about how women still have to get themselves noticed by dressing in an overtly sexual way, even though they want to be seen as the pure athletes that they are, a lot of that is on you for what happened back in the Attitude Era, where you had women doing bra and panties matches and negligee and evening gown matches. Not really serious competition. Even the company that Jeff Jarrett started, you suggested the name TNA. Jeff Jarrett wanted it to be standing for total non-stop action. You really saw it as tits and ass. So really, this part, you would shoot yourself down in the foot in this part of it, because where the women are are still at now, even in 2025, all these years later, where they want to be taken seriously, but they feel like the only way they get taken seriously is if they objectify themselves. And I wonder how many of those women would rather dress just in an ordinary wrestling outfit, just and still want to be noticed for how good they are. Once again, women's wrestling is not my thing, just like I don't want to see people get hit over the head with light tubes, because I just see that as cheap pyro. But anyway, let's go back to the script. So some people don't like something on a pole matches either. Also, you're a mark if you walk around the arena with a championship belt over your shoulder. Yeah, well, not my thing, but what's the harm? The person that does that has spent their hard-earned money on what they desire, and they like carrying around. And some people use it as an autograph book to get it signed. Maybe some old-style wrestlers get a little annoyed because the belt wasn't earned in the ring. Now, I know a title belt in wrestling isn't earned like a UFC or a boxing belt, but a wrestling belt is earned because the booker or the matchmaker has nominated you to be the main reason people buy a ticket to come see the show. Now, really, if you wear a belt like that, you're a superfan. Perhaps a bit nerdy, but a superfan. A more dedicated version of someone who buys a t-shirt. I didn't buy this, I won this one. And also, you're a mark if you rent space free of charge in your mum's basement. Well, I live with my wife, so I guess I'm not a mark. But by the way, how do you pay rent when it's free? Also, you're a mark if you're part of a tribe that loves one wrestling brand and hates the other wrestling brand. That's how Mr. Russo says wrestling. Now, actually, it would be the opposite. A true mark would envelop all wrestling. Now, Mr. Russo is describing a tribalist here. And you're a mark if you hate Vince Russo. Whether or not your enemies is your own choice. Now, I can't listen to him for more than 5 minutes because of the increasing bro count. I don't see how you can be a mark for something that you didn't buy. Also, jeepers. And also, you're a mark if you're offended by anyone who refers to you as a mark. What? No, okay. The intent of the words spoken may play a part in how things like this are taken. Also, you honestly believe Triple H or Tony Khan are the true bookers of the year. Well, based on results, it would have to be one or the other. I mean, I'd like to put up Mike Manson as Booker of the Year because he's my wrestling friend and he's the owner and booker of Alpha Pro Wrestling. Now, that's because I enjoy their product and I enjoy it more than I'm enjoying most of what's on TV right now. But going on results worldwide, who else could legitimately be in the running? And also, you're a mark if you cried when Cody Rhodes finished his story and beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Well, when you lose yourself in a good story, you feel whatever emotion they want you to feel. Take a look at the famous movie Stripes. Now, remember when Bill Murray mentioned about how everyone cried when the dog Old Yeller died? And I've heard many TV shows and movies mention it. But guess what, folks? It was just a movie. The dog didn't really die. When my beloved Sydney Kings won their first NBL championship, that's the National Basketball League here in Australia, I was crying with joy over the phone with my beautiful wife, who saw me in the crowd celebrating after some 14 brutal years of following my fave basketball team. Now, that was in 2003. If the Cody Rhodes or any other story means that much to you, it's not my emotion, but yours. But it's nothing to be ashamed of. And also, you make every excuse in the book when your brand's rating is down for the week. Now, even if you are on either side of this fence, is this a hill either one of you are going to die on? The only people that should be worried about ratings are TV executives, the companies involved, the advertisers, and anyone who fear that their TV show will not get renewed if not enough people are watching. Now, sidebar here. How many people watch the show at the appointed time as against people who watch at a later time, like on demand, or only watch YouTube clips later, particularly if the show is on at an inconvenient time for you, like daytime for us Aussies. We're at work when it's on, when shows like that are on. Why aren't those numbers dissected more closely? Anyways, Mr. Russo, you might want to rethink things. As for anyone, I'll respectfully debate whoever. If somehow Mr. Russo gets wind of this episode, I'd love to have him on. I'm not a fan of yours, Mr. Russo, but I'll give you a fair go. Even if the bro counter explodes, I'll give you a fair go because that's the Aussie way. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please like, subscribe, share, do all the things that every other YouTube show tells you to do. But please, do mine first. All right. Till next time. This has been your wrestling mate from down under. I'm Southern Joe, and this is Haru.